Prologue, The Illusion of Curvature, by Dr. Mara Ellison, Sociocultural Historian, New Chronology Division, Dome, 7, 2097 CE. They called it a conspiracy. We now call it history. In the year 2042, the veil lifted. Not through a war, not through religion, not through mass rebellion, but through error. A small calibration glitch in a military orbital illusion system, ironically named Horizon Sync. For 17 minutes, across 5 continents, the dome flickered. Skies pixelated. The moon paused mid-cycle, planes grounded, shadows bent the wrong way. And for the first time in millennia, billions of people saw what they were never meant to, the edges. That was the end of the globe model. But it was not the beginning of awakening. That came later, and it has taken decades to unravel the lie. This report, my final work before retirement, is centered around a relic from the pre-disclosure era, a 25-chapter digital film entitled InSlowSpective, The Flat Earth Theory. Created anonymously in 2025, it was dismissed at the time as speculative entertainment. But today, it is considered a prescient artifact of near truth, a cultural X-ray of a civilization starting to remember. My research focuses on how humanity once accepted the illogical premise of a spherical world floating in a void, how we were conditioned to reject the plane and embrace the abstract, how truth was hidden not through suppression but saturation. 1,000 spinning globes in every classroom, 1,000 more in orbiting simulations. How did we not see? That is what I attempt to answer here. What follows is not only a review of the InSlowSpective series, but a sociological journal from inside a new world, post-reckoning, a world returned to center, a world slowly learning to live under the dome. On purpose. We will show the digital film now as a case study. Sit back and enjoy. After, we will be back with further commentary on society's beliefs in 2025.
For centuries, we've been told that Earth is a spinning sphere, hurtling through space at breakneck speed, orbiting a distant sun in an infinite void. We've been taught to trust the globe, to memorize it in school, to accept it without question. But what if everything we've been told is a carefully manufactured illusion? What if the globe isn't just incorrect, but a deliberate lie? From the moment we're born, the globe is everywhere. Classroom walls, TV shows, flight maps, corporate logos. It's not just a shape. It's a symbol of trust, control, and unquestioned belief. But like all powerful symbols, its origins are murky. The ancient world, from the Babylonians to the Norse, described Earth not as a sphere, but as a plane, sometimes surrounded by ice, sometimes encircled by water, often covered by a firmament above. The spherical Earth only became the dominant model after imperial institutions and secret societies began consolidating knowledge. In 1531, the first modern globe was created by cartographer Gemma Frisius. Coincidentally, at the same time, powerful religious and scientific authorities began rewriting cosmology. This was not a coincidence. It was a calculated move. As exploration of the Earth increased, the narrative had to be reshaped. The more people traveled, the more controlled the narrative needed to be. And so, the globe was born, not from observation, but from the needs of an emerging global empire. Think about it. Despite all our technological advancement, we still rely on artistic renderings and CGI for images of Earth from space. NASA admits that many photos are composites, stitched together, color-corrected, altered. Why? Why can't we see an uninterrupted, live feed, 24/7 video of Earth spinning in space? In the age of satellites, streaming, and AI, shouldn't this be easy? Unless there's something to hide. Flat Earth theory doesn't claim to know everything. It claims that the official version doesn't add up. It points to contradictions in flight paths, the lack of measurable curvature, and the conspicuous placement of military bases around the supposed bottom of the world. The flat Earth model doesn't remove mystery, it restores it. It suggests we are not on a fragile rock in an infinite void, but on a vast, sacred plain, surrounded by secrets, walls, and ancient boundaries that we were never meant to cross. In the chapters ahead, we'll look deeper into ancient maps, modern deceptions, and the most forbidden territory of all, Antarctica. But first, we must understand the illusion we've been placed within. Welcome to the Great Unveiling. The sky above us should be the ultimate test of truth. In a world governed by the globe model, flight paths are expected to follow clean arcs over a curved surface. But when one begins to examine the routes of commercial airlines with a discerning eye, a troubling pattern emerges, one that raises profound questions about the true layout of our world. Why do so many international flights between the Southern Hemisphere require illogical stopovers in the Northern Hemisphere? Why are direct flights between certain southern cities, like Santiago and Sydney, rare, limited, or even non-existent at times? And when such flights do occur, why do their travel times, fuel usage, and even their rare live tracking data so often contradict what we would expect on a globe? The answer, flat Earth theorists argue, is simple but explosive. The Earth isn't a sphere, and the current map isn't the true layout. On a flat Earth model, especially the widely circulated azimuthal equidistant projection, these so-called bizarre flight paths make perfect sense. A direct line from South America to Australia would actually stretch across North America on a flat plane. What appears inefficient on a globe becomes entirely logical when you unroll the surface. Pilots and flight controllers are often unaware of the deeper implications. They follow programmed routes, automated systems, and GPS paths created by international bodies like the ICAO and governed by satellite-based control systems, many of which trace back to military origins. But even some insiders have begun to speak out. Anonymous testimonies, leaked documents, and whistleblower pilots suggest that internal maps used in aviation, especially for military and emergency routing, don't match the public globe. Then there's the matter of forbidden zones, areas of Earth that are unusually restricted from public access. The most notorious of these lies at the so-called bottom of the world, Antarctica. Governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, this massive expanse is off-limits to independent exploration. While some limited tourism is allowed along tightly controlled coastal fringes, no country or civilian entity is allowed to venture deep into the interior without extensive authorization and oversight from multiple governments. It's the only continent where no true colonization has been allowed. Why? The Flat Earth model proposes that Antarctica is not a continent at all, but rather a massive ice wall encircling the known world, holding the oceans in place. In this model, the icy perimeter acts as a boundary to our reality, a final frontier, not because it's remote, but because it's forbidden. If this is true, then the greatest lie isn't about the shape of the Earth, it's about what lies beyond. In the wake of World War II, nations scrambled for influence, territory, and scientific supremacy. But amid this global chaos, something unusual happened, an unprecedented act of global cooperation. In 1959, 12 powerful nations, including the US and Soviet Union, signed the Antarctic Treaty, effectively declaring the entire continent off-limits for independent human development. No mining, no military, no sovereignty, just science, or so they said. Why would such fiercely competitive nations agree to demilitarize and restrict access to a landmass twice the size of Australia? Flat Earth researchers argue that this treaty isn't about peace, it's about preservation, not of nature, but of a secret. A boundary. According to this theory, Antarctica is not the bottom of the globe. It is the edge of the known world, an immense wall of ice that encircles our flat, circular Earth, like the rim of a colossal dish. This ice wall, potentially hundreds of feet high in places, holds back the world's oceans and marks the outermost limit of human domain. Beyond it, no one knows for sure. Some believe in further lands, hidden civilizations, or perhaps simply the abyss. Operation High Jump, a U.S. military mission in 1946-47, led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, is often cited as a key event. Publicly framed as a large-scale scientific expedition, it included an aircraft carrier, destroyers, and over 4,000 personnel. The mission was abruptly cut short, and Byrd later made cryptic statements in interviews, claiming he had encountered vast lands beyond the pole, larger than the United States. His statements, archived in obscure transcripts, fueled decades of speculation. Following High Jump, the Antarctic Treaty was fast-tracked. Signed by 12 nations, it now includes over 50 signatories. Independent exploration is restricted. All activities are monitored. Permits are tightly controlled. Civilian flyovers are banned, and no private corporations have ever been allowed to develop the area, even for its potentially immense mineral wealth. Ask yourself, what other part of the Earth is treated this way? The Flat Earth model holds that Antarctica's true nature is the single most guarded secret on Earth. The treaty, the military presence, the carefully choreographed scientific stations dotting the coast, they're not protection from the cold. They're protection of a truth that, if revealed, could dismantle our understanding of the world, and with it, the control systems built upon that illusion. If the Earth is flat, and Antarctica forms its outer boundary, then the question becomes inevitable. What lies beyond the ice wall? This is where speculation deepens and the mystery sharpens. Ancient myths, hidden maps, declassified rumors, and forbidden texts hint at an idea so radical, so reality-shattering, that it has been buried beneath ridicule and scientific dogma, that beyond the Antarctic perimeter may lie other lands, worlds beyond our own. Some call it the outer lands theory. According to this idea, our known Earth, the continents, the oceans, the weather patterns, and civilizations, is just one realm, sealed in by a vast ring of ice. But outside this ring may exist additional lands, possibly uninhabited, possibly populated, and possibly more advanced than our own. These regions are sometimes called terra infinita, the infinite Earth, realms untouched by our history, operating under unknown laws, and hidden by design. Ancient Buddhist texts speak of 4 concentric continents encircling a central mountain beneath a great dome, each one more distant and mysterious than the last. The Book of Enoch, once excluded from the Bible, describes ends of the earth, where celestial mechanisms and hidden chambers reside. Even some versions of the Piri Reis map and the Dulce papers whisper about lands beyond the pole that are not covered in ice. Could these be the echoes of a deeper truth? If our world was designed, or seeded, by higher intelligences, it would make sense to enclose one portion, like a habitat dome, while leaving others separated by natural barriers. And if those who rule us have discovered these outer lands, either through ancient knowledge or classified exploration, then the entire geopolitical system may exist not to control Earth, but to contain us. Whistleblower accounts, though scarce, are chillingly consistent. Tales of disappearing expeditions, of coordinates scrubbed from GPS logs, of strange lights seen on satellite edges. Even the deepest, most remote radar data from weather balloons and sonar reflectivity scans seem to cut off beyond a certain threshold, as if the realm itself enforces a boundary of perception. Perhaps we live in a quarantine zone, a human farm, or a cradle, one that is never meant to be outgrown. And the ice wall, not a barrier of nature, but a designed containment ring, holding us in, or keeping others out. Since ancient times, humanity has looked to the sky and seen more than just stars. We've seen a structure, a boundary, a dome, a barrier between the earth and the heavens. Nearly every ancient civilization spoke of a firmament, a solid vault that arched over the earth, separating the waters above from the world below. The Hebrew Bible in Genesis describes it plainly. "And God said, 'Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters.' And God called the firmament heaven." The Sumerians, Egyptians, Hindus, Norse, and many more echoed this idea, each in their own language and symbolism. But in the modern era, the firmament was quietly erased. Mainstream science tells us that space is a vacuum and that the atmosphere bleeds gradually into nothingness. Yet, no one has ever directly transitioned from breathable air to space without protective craft. The boundary is assumed, but never truly seen. Even NASA admits that parts of low Earth orbit are bombarded by lethal radiation from the Van Allen belts, zones so intense they've presented massive obstacles to manned space travel. Wernher von Braun, the father of American rocket science, cryptically referenced Psalm 19:1. "The firmament showeth his handiwork," on his gravestone. Flat Earth theorists believe this wasn't just poetic, it was a clue. According to this model, the Earth is covered by a physical dome, a vast, transparent or reflective barrier that encloses the sky. Stars and celestial lights are not distant suns, but energetic phenomena embedded in or projected upon the dome. The sun and moon, too, move within this enclosed system, cycling above the flat plane like celestial mechanisms in a cosmic clock. And the evidence? It's more visible than we're led to believe. High-altitude amateur rockets have captured strange events at their apex: abrupt halts, flashes of blue light, and the so-called sky wave, where footage warps as if hitting an invisible surface. Weather balloons detect sudden pressure shifts. Pilots have reported a glass-like shimmer at extreme altitudes. The Cold War era was marked by a frenzy of upper-atmosphere nuclear tests, like Operation Fishbowl and Starfish Prime, launched not at enemies, but upward. Why? Were they probing the dome, testing its limits, or perhaps attempting to break through? In modern entertainment and predictive programming, the concept of a dome returns again and again. The Truman Show, Under the Dome, The Simpsons movie. It's as if the truth is shown in fiction, only to be dismissed by reality. The firmament may not be myth. It may be the greatest unacknowledged truth in human history, that we are inside a system, not on a planet, but in a contained environment, meticulously designed and even more meticulously hidden. If the Earth is a flat, enclosed system beneath a firmament, then the movements of the heavens must be reinterpreted, not as distant orbital physics, but as localized, elegant mechanics operating within a contained dome. In the traditional globe model, the Earth rotates while orbiting the Sun, which is itself orbiting the galactic center. Everything is in motion, vast and chaotic. But the flat Earth model presents an entirely different cosmology, orderly, precise, harmonious. In this model, the Sun and Moon are not 93,000,000 and 239,000 miles away, respectively. Instead, they are much smaller and closer, perhaps 30 to 50 miles in diameter, suspended approximately 3,000 miles above the Earth. They orbit the central axis of the flat plane in circular motions, like hands of a clock above the face of time. The Sun shines like a focused spotlight, illuminating only parts of the plane as it travels. This explains the observable day-night cycles without needing a rotating Earth. The Moon behaves similarly, but with a softer, colder light, one that, according to some measurements, cools objects rather than warms them. Their predictable paths create the equinoxes, solstices, and lunar phases, not from shadow play, but from relative positioning above the plane. Stars in this cosmology are affixed within or projected onto the firmament. Some believe they are electromagnetic phenomena, others that they are energetic nodes resonating from beyond the dome. The so-called wandering stars, known today as planets, exhibit unusual behaviors in high-zoom observations. They flicker, ripple, and pulse as though underwater, far different from the hard, spherical worlds shown in CGI. And the North Star, Polaris? It remains fixed at the center of the dome, directly above the magnetic North Pole, never shifting, never orbiting. If the Earth were truly spinning at 1,000 miles per hour and orbiting the Sun at 67,000 miles per hour, how could this star remain so perfectly constant over centuries? Eclipses are also reimagined. Instead of the Moon casting shadows or being obscured by Earth's curvature, flat Earth theorists propose the existence of a third object, an invisible body or energetic form that occasionally moves between the luminaries and the dome, creating the temporary occlusion we observe as an eclipse. From above, the cosmos in the flat Earth model is a synchronized machine, less an accident of chaos, more an engineered system. Like a planetary timepiece, each element moves in harmony with the others, not for the sake of randomness, but for meaning, signs, symbols, and celestial rhythm embedded by design. Perhaps the ancient world wasn't primitive. It was correct. Maybe the Earth isn't a cosmic speck in a meaningless void, but a sacred platform beneath a dome, illuminated by the intelligent dance of localized lights, meant not just to guide, but to tell a story. The globe model did not arise purely from scientific enlightenment. It was crafted, polished, and promoted by institutions that sought control, not clarity. For thousands of years, civilizations viewed the world as flat or enclosed. Even the earliest maps, Babylonian clay tablets, Norse cosmology, ancient Chinese scrolls, reflected a plane surrounded by boundaries. Then, in the 1500s, as imperial powers emerged and global exploration began, the narrative began to shift. But why? Because the globe was not just a scientific idea, it was a political tool, a philosophical cage, and a religious replacement. As nations expanded, so too did their need for unifying ideologies. The concept of a spinning ball Earth, lost in an infinite void, offered a new worldview, one that severed man from the divine, replaced purpose with probability, and centralized knowledge in the hands of emerging elites. With the globe came other illusions: gravity as a universal answer, space as an unreachable frontier, and Earth as a mere speck among trillions. These ideas weren't just revolutionary, they were disempowering. The Catholic Church, once guardian of the geocentric model, didn't resist for long. Jesuit astronomers became key proponents of heliocentrism. Later, global institutions like the Royal Society, NASA, and the United Nations would double down on the spherical narrative. Even the UN's own logo, suspiciously resembling a flat Earth azimuthal map, shows the continents encircled by laurel branches, not orbiting a globe. Why adopt the globe? Because a globe is containable, navigable, and divisible, perfect for carving up territory, selling maps, and projecting power. And most importantly, a globe separates man from center. On a ball, there is no up or down, no center, no sacred ground. Flat Earth theory asserts that this shift was not scientific progress, but a cosmological coup. The removal of center was the removal of meaning. The moment the Earth became a sphere in infinite space was the moment humanity lost its place in the cosmos. We became accidents, cosmic debris, drifting without purpose, vulnerable to manipulation, untethered from truth. It wasn't about geography, it was about belief. Because those who control the shape of the Earth control the shape of your mind. Of all the ideas in modern science, gravity is perhaps the most unquestioned and the most misunderstood. We are told it is a universal force that causes all matter to attract other matter, that it holds galaxies together, bends light, and keeps us glued to the spinning globe. But what if gravity isn't real? In the flat Earth model, the idea of gravity as a magical invisible force pulling everything toward the center of a sphere is not only unprovable, it's unnecessary. Instead, everything we observe can be more simply and consistently explained by two principles: density and buoyancy. In this model, objects fall, or rise, not because of a force pulling them from the center of a sphere, but because of how their density compares to the medium they are in. A rock sinks in water because it is denser. A helium balloon rises in air because it is less dense. These observations are repeatable, testable, and require no mythical force acting at a distance. You don't need gravity to explain why an apple falls from a tree. You need relative density equilibrium. When equilibrium is disrupted, the object moves to restore balance. So why has gravity been so fiercely defended? Because it is the linchpin of the globe. Without gravity, water would not cling to a spinning ball. The atmosphere wouldn't stay neatly attached as the Earth rockets through space. Planets couldn't orbit. Moons couldn't hang. The entire cosmology would unravel. Newton himself described gravity as a force he could describe mathematically, but not explain physically. Einstein then replaced it with a concept of curved space-time, a mental model so abstract it depends on imaginary dimensions and relative perspectives. It shifted science from the tangible to the theoretical. In truth, gravity has never been directly measured. It's been inferred, assumed, and engineered into every textbook, but not independently proven as a distinct force. Meanwhile, the behavior of fluids, gases, and objects in equilibrium obeys simple laws. Drop a bowling ball and a feather in a vacuum. They fall at the same rate, not because of gravity, but because resistance has been removed, and density alone is left to act. In the flat Earth model, there is no need for an invisible force pulling everything downward toward the core of a sphere. Instead, everything settles according to its natural place, a vertical sorting system determined by physical properties. And that's the danger. When truth is simple, control becomes hard. Gravity is not just a scientific claim. It's a philosophical cornerstone. It tells us we are small, dependent, and pulled by forces beyond comprehension. But when you remove it, you return agency to the physical world, to logic, to observation, to us. We are told that thousands of satellites orbit our planet, beaming down GPS, television, weather data, and surveillance. That they float in a vacuum, circling a spinning ball, thousands of miles above our heads. But when we look up, what do we really see? Nothing. We don't see satellites with the naked eye, despite claims of them reflecting sunlight. We don't see rocket launches entering space, just dramatic arcs that fade into the ocean. We don't see the Earth from space without digital enhancement. And when we search for real-time footage, we're met with computer graphics, composite images, and suspicious live streams that always conveniently cut out. The flat Earth model posits that satellites, as we're told, don't exist in space at all. Instead, they are high-altitude aircraft, weather balloons, or long-range ground-based systems using towers, undersea cables, and land-based stations. Communication does not require orbiting objects. It requires line-of-sight transmission within an enclosed system. If the Earth is flat and domed, there is no space to enter. There is only the sky, layered with density gradients, and a barrier above, the firmament, impenetrable by physical craft. And yet, the space agencies of the world insist on space. NASA, Roscosmos, CNSA, ESA. Despite being political rivals, they share one truth: the illusion of space. Why such universal cooperation? Because space is the perfect lie. It creates infinite budget, unlimited awe, and a global narrative that no individual can verify. Rockets never go straight up. They curve, they arc, then they vanish into the ocean, into telemetry blackouts. The footage shifts from actual camera to CGI without explanation. Spacewalks reveal bubbles. Green screens glitch. Reflections show studio lights. And interviews from the International Space Station contain strange body movements, harness errors, and digital distortions. Why fake space? Because space justifies the globe. It requires a sphere to orbit, a vacuum to escape into, a curvature to disappear over. If you expose the sky as limited, if you show that nothing can break the firmament, then the entire narrative falls. GPS works through ground-based towers, bouncing signals across a grid. Weather data comes from high-altitude drones and radar arrays. Global communication depends on undersea fiber optic cables, not orbital relays. Everything we're told is done from above, is being done from below. And if no one has truly been to space, then what lies beyond the dome? The lie of satellites is not just technical, it's philosophical. It sells the idea that humans can escape the system, that we can rise above creation and see the whole. But in truth, we are not outside observers. We are participants inside the design. Of all the continents, none is more mysterious or more restricted than Antarctica. We're told it's a desolate wasteland of ice and snow. But if that were true, why is it so heavily guarded? Why the treaties, the patrols, the no-fly zones? Why is it easier to summit Everest than to cross Antarctica freely? The flat Earth theory proposes a radical reframing. Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a globe. It is the boundary of the known world. A colossal ring of ice, stretching around the outermost edge of the Earth, rising like a natural wall. And just beyond that wall, unknown territory. But the wall isn't just guarded by nature, it's guarded by military force. Officially, the Antarctic Treaty System is in place to preserve peace and scientific cooperation. But beneath this diplomatic surface lies a vast network of classified zones, unauthorized airspace, and multinational military coordination. Satellite imagery of the continent is blurred or incomplete. Civilian drone footage is banned. GPS behaves erratically. And visitors must stick to tightly regulated tourist corridors near the peninsula, nowhere near the deep interior. Those who try to explore independently face swift and forceful response. There are reports, quiet, often anonymous, of unauthorized expeditions being intercepted, warned off, or turned back by armed forces. Naval vessels patrol certain sectors. Radar towers rise where no research should require them. What are they watching for? Some flat Earth researchers believe that there are access points, hidden pathways through or around the ice wall. Old maps, long censored, depict lands beyond the Antarctic perimeter. Cryptic notations like terra incognita and rups nigra mark entrances through frozen crevasses or glacial valleys that no modern chart dares name. And then there are the claims of insiders. One pilot, in a leaked interview, spoke of being rerouted during a supply run and accidentally glimpsing a massive green valley ringed by mountains where no green should exist. Another report tells of seismic anomalies beneath the ice, readings that resemble not tectonic shifts, but machinery. High-frequency active auroral research facilities, HARP-style installations, are said to operate near the pole under the guise of ionospheric science. But what are they really monitoring or maintaining? The truth may be this. The Antarctic wall is not just a boundary, it's a seal, a protective ring, a quarantine edge, a geopolitical firewall between our world and what lies beyond. Whether it's other lands, ancient technologies, or something older than humanity itself, the barrier is there for a reason, not to keep us safe, but to keep us in. If Antarctica is a wall, what lies beyond the wall? The flat Earth model, paired with ancient cosmological hints and forbidden cartography, suggests a stunning possibility. There are other lands, beyond the ice, untouched by modern history, and someone may have built them. Across centuries and continents, myths have whispered of lost civilizations and gods who shaped the earth, but perhaps they were never lost, only hidden. Perhaps they dwell beyond the circle. In the Vedic texts, the world is described as a plain divided into concentric rings of land and ocean. In Buddhist cosmology, continents like Uttarakuru and Jambudvipa exist beyond the horizon, each with their own inhabitants and purposes. Norse sagas speak of Ginnungagap, the yawning void separating realms, and in medieval European maps, Terra Australis Incognita was drawn vast and mysterious, surrounding the known world. Modern flat Earth researchers believe these clues point to a pre-human architect class, a race of ancient builders not of this current world, but of the outer realms. These beings, or their descendants, may still exist in lands just past the Antarctic boundary. Evidence of such builders is subtle but persistent. Megalithic ruins beneath Antarctic ice, glimpsed in satellite scans and quickly removed from public datasets. Reports from Operation Highjump and Project Iceworm, describing structures not made by men, sealed in glacial vaults. Odd geometries in ancient temple layouts and star maps, patterns that make sense only when seen from a bird's-eye view of a flat, mapped plain. And in the fringe writings of early explorers, mentions of cities carved into cliffs, towers made of black stone, and light sources that never dim. Some theorists propose that these builders are not human, but pre-human, the architects of the firmament itself. Perhaps they crafted the dome, the sun and moon mechanisms, and even the lands inside and outside the circle. They may reside in the outer realms, watching from a distance, their creations stretching across multiple Earth systems, each sealed, each isolated. Others believe the outer realms are populated by breakaway civilizations, human-like beings who never fell under global control, cultures that retained knowledge, technology, and spiritual power, lost to those of us inside the seal. They left behind stone circles, pyramid networks, and global alignments as markers, waiting for the day we remember. Why hide this? Because the truth would rewrite everything. It would prove that our world is not an accident, but a designed construct, one small part of a vast, interlinked plane, and that those who rule us are not the top of the pyramid, but simply its caretakers, holding back the flood of awakening. Beyond the wall are the builders, the preservers, and perhaps the judges. For centuries, the firmament, the great dome, has stood as a boundary above us, separating the world of men from the vast unknown beyond. In nearly every ancient tradition, it is said to be impenetrable, a perfect seal, a divine vault. But is it truly unbreakable, or have there been breaches? In the flat Earth model, the firmament is not theoretical. It is structural, a crystalline or energetic boundary, possibly artificial, constructed to contain the system of earth and sky. But cracks have been whispered of, testimonies dismissed, data buried, and a pattern begins to emerge. Some have tried to break through. The most notorious case is Operation Fishbowl, a series of high-altitude nuclear tests conducted by the United States in the early 1960s. The official story claimed these tests were for studying atmospheric effects, but the trajectories, yields, and altitudes suggest something far more secretive, an attempt to breach the dome. Witnesses described bizarre phenomena, aurora-like flashes, electromagnetic disruptions, and concussive booms that echoed far beyond expected ranges. Some footage, since classified, showed shockwaves cascading against what looked like a solid, invisible ceiling. Did they hit the firmament? If so, they failed to break it. But the message was clear. Someone was testing the limits of our enclosure. Since then, there have been leaks, whistleblowers, hushed anomalies. In 1986, a Soviet cosmonaut claimed to have seen a grid in the sky during a high-altitude balloon test, before being silenced and reassigned. A 1997 amateur weather balloon captured footage of a sudden stop at extreme altitude, followed by erratic motion and lens distortion, interpreted by many as impact with a barrier. In 2014, a military pilot on a classified mission described a lightning-like web spreading across the upper atmosphere after a high-speed projectile strike, as if the sky absorbed the energy. And then there are the silent signs, the absence of manned missions past low Earth orbit for decades, the growing reliance on CGI space footage, the retraction of NASA's own Firmament referencing documents, now memory hold. More chillingly, some say there are cracks that were not made by us. Certain rare sky events, translucent arcs, luminous rifts, or spectral lightning veils, are theorized to be signs of fractures, stress points, or controlled openings. Could something have entered or exited through them? Perhaps the firmament is not just a ceiling. Perhaps it is a lock, and whatever is outside may be looking back in. The truth is hidden behind layers of deception, but one thing is clear. The firmament is real, and someone has been testing it, and when it cracks, even a little, everything changes. When exploring the flat Earth theory, a pressing question inevitably surfaces. Why lie? Why would governments, scientists, schools, and entire generations participate in such a grand deception? What could possibly be gained by convincing the world it lives on a spinning ball in space? The answer is not simply about control of land, resources, or power. It is about something far deeper, the control of the mind. The globe is not just a shape. It is a psychological framework, a belief system, a paradigm that reduces human existence to a cosmic accident on a random rock, spinning in a cold, indifferent void. It teaches that there is no center, no up, no down, no divine architecture. That truth is inaccessible without institutions. That purpose is illusion, and that everything you experience is filtered through the lens of experts, authorities, and unseen forces. The globe is the foundation of nihilism. Flat Earth theory, by contrast, proposes something radically empowering, that you are not an insignificant speck in an endless universe. You are part of a crafted reality, a system with boundaries, meaning, and design. And that design suggests intention, perhaps even accountability. This is why the lie must be maintained. Because if the truth were known, if the firmament were proven, the wall acknowledged, and the flat plane revealed, the entire structure of modern power would collapse. Governments, corporations, scientific hierarchies, globalist systems, and secular ideologies would lose their grip. If the Earth is flat and enclosed, then everything changes. Education becomes indoctrination. Space exploration becomes theater. Science becomes selective storytelling. Faith and metaphysics return to the forefront, not as superstition, but as rational inquiry. Those in control cannot allow this. So the illusion must be absolute, reinforced with every school globe, every satellite animation, every Hollywood space odyssey, every children's book, and every mockery of those who question. To ask, is the Earth flat, is to be branded mad, anti-science, or dangerous. But what's truly dangerous is a species that forgets where it is. We've been told to gaze outward, into galaxies we'll never touch, while ignoring the very ground beneath us. The true prison is not physical. It's mental. A globe is not just a model of Earth. It is a cage for consciousness. Break that illusion, and people may start asking other questions. Who built this world? Why are we here? What lies beyond? And perhaps most dangerously of all, who has been hiding it from us? In the old world, Earth was the center of everything, not out of arrogance, but reverence. The ancients didn't believe Earth was central because they thought humanity was superior. They believed it because they recognized design. They saw harmony in the skies, symmetry in the seasons, and purpose in the stars. They believed in a world made with intention, not indifference. But in the modern age, that center was removed. We were told we orbit a sun that orbits a galaxy, that orbits a black hole in a universe with no center, no edge, no meaning. Our position became meaningless. We became nothing. Cosmic debris born from a bang we can't explain, floating on a sphere no one can feel move, spinning at 1,000 miles per hour without a sound. The flat Earth model challenges this, not by inflating ego, but by restoring significance. It tells us the Earth is not lost in space, but placed in space, that above us is not an infinite void, but a ceiling, that the sky is not chaos, it's structure, that we are not accidents, we are situated, and that at the very center of this grand system lies us. A central Earth is a meaningful Earth. It makes the sun, the moon, and the stars not symbols of isolation, but of intimacy. They were placed not far away, but near, accessible, in motion above us, designed for us. It reframes life not as a competition for survival on a spinning rock, but as a purposeful experience within a cosmic habitat. And that changes everything. Morality regains footing. If we are designed, so too are our responsibilities. Spirituality reawakens. The divine is no longer a metaphor, but a presence embedded in the architecture of the world. Science becomes sacred, not a tool for dominance, but a path toward understanding the Creator's design. Self-worth transforms. We are not one of billions of planets. We are the dwelling place. We are not clinging to gravity. We are standing on intention. To reclaim the flat Earth is not just to correct a map. It is to return to the center of meaning. It is to say, we are not wandering. We are placed. And if we are placed, then we are known. If the Earth is flat, enclosed, and intentional, then who built it? This question haunts the edges of the flat Earth model, not as a flaw, but as its most profound revelation. Because if the Earth was constructed, then it has a constructor, and perhaps many. Across ancient cultures there are echoes of these architects, beings not born of Earth, but of the heavens. Not myth, but memory. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, who descended from the sky to shape the land and the heavens. The Book of Enoch tells of watchers, divine beings who taught mankind astronomy, geometry, and law. In Egypt, Thoth was said to have laid down the foundations of cosmic order, while in Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl was a sky being who gave humanity calendars and structure. Even the Bible refers to the firmament being made, not formed by nature, but by command. Let there be a firmament implies creation, not accident. An act of power, not process. So what if these stories are not metaphors, but scrambled truths? Many flat Earth researchers now believe that the Earth and the dome above it were engineered, that the sun and moon are mechanisms, not orbs, that stars are fixed points in a crystalline shell, programmed and aligned, that the ice wall is a boundary, not a geographical formation, and that somewhere, beyond what we are allowed to see, the architects still watch. Who are they? Some say they are divine beings, still beyond comprehension, gods not of religion, but of reality itself. Others believe they are ultra-terrestrial engineers, operating from outside the dome, or even from other enclosed systems like ours. There is also the theory of the Great Experiment, that humanity is being tested within a sealed environment, a kind of cosmic petri dish, monitored for growth, collapse, and consciousness. Evidence? Ancient machines found beneath the ice, global pyramid alignments pointing not to stars, but to dome reflections. Prophecies speaking of a time when the veil will be lifted, and the watchers will return, and the disturbing notion that humanity once knew, but was made to forget. This is why disclosure is resisted, not just because the Earth is flat, but because if it is, then we are not alone. We are not the top of the chain. We are the inhabitants of a built system. And perhaps, when the time is right, the architects will return, not as conquerors, but as judges, revealing the truth to a world long kept in shadow. And when that day comes, we must ask, will we be ready to meet those who built the walls around our sky? As more researchers question the nature of the firmament, an unexpected pattern emerges, not from conspiracy theories, but from mathematics. The sky is not random. It is patterned, proportioned, aligned, and it may be built on the oldest language of all, sacred geometry. Throughout history, sacred geometry has been used to describe the structure of reality, from the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence to the flower of life and Platonic solids. What if the sky itself is shaped by these divine patterns? Flat Earth cosmology posits that the dome above us is not just a shell, it is a resonating geometric field. And when we examine ancient temples, star charts, and even the movements of celestial bodies, strange consistencies appear. The sun's and moon's paths follow near-perfect circular harmonics above the plane, hinting at mechanical elegance. Star constellations repeat in fixed ratios, not orbital randomness. The distances between significant latitudes, Tropic of Cancer, Equator, Tropic of Capricorn, match harmonic intervals. The North Star, Polaris, sits dead center, unmoving, like the capstone of a dome, anchoring everything with stillness in a world of illusionary motion. Ancient civilizations knew this. The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Vedic sages, they aligned their temples not to planets, but to patterns. Patterns that only make full sense on a flat plane, beneath a domed sky, with fixed stars above. Even in modern science, cymatic experiments, where sound shapes matter, reveal dome-like standing waveforms that create hexagons, spirals, and concentric rings, all mirrored in the sky. Could the firmament be a kind of harmonic resonance field? A crystalline matrix vibrating with sound and light? Perhaps stars are not balls of gas, but the nodes of a grand celestial instrument, projecting frequency and form into the world below. And if that's true, then the dome isn't just a ceiling. It's a tuned instrument, a structure of intention, a resonator of life itself. Which means, whoever built it wasn't just an architect, they were a composer. Everyone grows up learning about the familiar Mercator projection, the globe stretched into rectangles, continents warped into strange proportions. But few ask where these maps came from, or what maps came before. Flat Earth researchers argue that the maps we're taught are not just inaccurate, they are intentional distortions, designed to obscure our true geography and place in the world. But hidden in old libraries, museum archives, and forbidden tomes are maps that tell a different story. One of the most compelling is the Gleason's New Standard Map of the World, published in 1892. It shows the Earth as a circle, with the North Pole at the center and continents radiating outward, encircled not by a southern continent, but by the vast frozen barrier of Antarctica. This map aligns precisely with azimuthal equidistant projections, the same kind used by the United Nations emblem. A curious coincidence? Or a quiet confession? Then there are the pre-Columbian and pre-Magellan charts, which display vast landmasses where nothing should be. Some show continents beyond the Antarctic ring. Others bear cryptic labels like Terra Incognita, Antichthones, or Antarctica non-est. Ancient Chinese cartography, particularly in the Shanhai Jing, depicts concentric lands, with rings of mountains and oceans surrounding a flat central kingdom. Medieval T and O maps, long dismissed as symbolic, may have been literal. The world as a circle divided into quadrants, encircled by water, topped by the heavens. Why were these maps abandoned? Because once you accept that the Earth is flat and enclosed, all maps must be recentered. The continents shift, distances warp, flight paths realign. The south becomes not a direction, but a barrier. And suddenly, the Earth feels larger, not smaller, like a level plain with borders yet unexplored. Some researchers claim these maps were preserved by secret societies, kept hidden to preserve power. Others say that ancient travelers glimpsed the truth before the Great Erasure began. Today, these maps resurface not in schools, but in shadows, passed hand to hand, digitally reconstructed, whispered over forums, podcasts, and documentaries. They are not just alternative geography. They are clues to a forgotten truth. And if we follow them far enough, they may just lead us beyond the wall. If there are lands beyond Antarctica, realms hidden behind the shimmering wall of ice, then it stands to reason they may be trying to reach us. Throughout history, there have been strange transmissions, phantom signals, and untraceable echoes picked up by radio receivers, sonar buoys, and deep-range telescopes. Signals that speak no human language, tones that defy natural origin, messages that come not from space, but from the edges of the world. Flat Earth researchers believe that many of these anomalies are not extraterrestrial, but extra-dimensional, not from stars, but from beyond the wall. The earliest records date back to World War II, when Allied listening posts in the southern hemisphere began picking up modulating frequency bursts that seemed to bounce, not from the ionosphere, but from something beyond the South Pole. The data was archived, classified, and forgotten. But in the decades that followed, the signals persisted. In 1978, an Argentine research station near the Ross Ice Shelf recorded a low, rhythmic heartbeat, echoing every 33 minutes from deep beneath the ice shelf. Instruments couldn't triangulate it. The official story? Glacial friction. But those who heard it firsthand described it as intelligent. In 1996, amateur radio enthusiasts in Tasmania intercepted a chirping signal in a harmonic pattern that repeated in mathematical intervals. It lasted 6 days. No satellite, military craft, or geophysical source was ever identified. And then there are the forbidden frequencies, bands of radio reserved for government or deep space research that occasionally fill with strange distortions. Clicks, tones, choral harmonics. Some sound eerily like speech, but not in any human dialect. Could these be messages, warnings, or simple signals leaking from realms never meant to touch ours? There are whispers of remote researchers who tried to respond, broadcasting back toward the edge, pulsing data toward Antarctica. Most were ignored, but a few claimed something terrifying. An answer came. Lights in the ice, shadows on infrared, systems malfunctioning, radios turning on with no power. Messages whispered in the static, not yet, not ready, not awake. It may not be aliens watching from the stars. It may be neighbors, just beyond the barrier, waiting for us to remember. Across the ages, ancient civilizations have spoken of cataclysms not as mere accidents, but as scheduled events. Floods, fires, darkness, and ice, each cycle arriving like the turning of a key, as if the world were governed by a vast, hidden clockwork. Flat Earth researchers believe this may be more than myth. They believe our enclosed realm operates according to a mechanical timeline, and that the firmament above is not just a ceiling, it is a cosmic chronometer, a regulating mechanism counting down to periodic resets. The evidence is chilling and widespread. The Mayan long count calendar, ending in a moment of world renewal, not destruction, marking shifts in Earth's harmonic resonance. The yugas of Vedic tradition, 4 vast epochs that loop in cycles of rising and falling consciousness, like a pendulum. The Great Year of Precession, a 26,000-year cosmic cycle known to the ancients, seemingly ignored by modern science. And the frequent references to the stars falling from heaven, the sky rolling up like a scroll, and the sun going dark, found in holy books and prophetic lore. These aren't poetic metaphors. They're technical warnings. Flat Earth cosmology proposes that the firmament is part of a self-regulating system, a kind of sealed biosphere managed by cycles of cleansing and recalibration. When the vibration of humanity falls too far out of sync with the divine harmony embedded in the dome's geometric structure, a reset is triggered. But unlike a natural disaster, this reset is intentional, a mechanism built into the very design of the world. Some call it the Great Clock, a theory suggesting that every 400–500 years, the system resets the surface of the Earth. Civilizations are wiped out, knowledge lost, and a new cycle begins. We are taught history as a continuous line, but evidence suggests overlapping worlds, abandoned cities, buried technologies, and forgotten ages that ended not by chance, but by schedule. And now, whispers grow louder. Instruments detect time dilation near the poles. Magnetic anomalies shift. Auroras intensify. Some researchers even claim to see the faint movement of stars in the dome changing rhythm, like a ticking slowing down. If true, the firmament may soon trigger its next phase, not out of malice, but out of design, a correction, a rebalancing, a clean sweep of a world grown out of tune with its original song, and perhaps a second chance to remember who we were before the last clock struck zero. Every enclosed system has a boundary, a wall, a gate, a seal. In the flat Earth model, that seal is the firmament itself, an impenetrable dome dividing our realm from whatever lies beyond. But what if there is more than just a ceiling? What if the true edge of our reality is not just above, but all around? Throughout ancient myth and suppressed cosmology, there is mention of a final barrier, not made of ice, not made of sky, but of energy, frequency, and law. A threshold so well guarded that even knowing of its existence becomes forbidden. Flat Earth theorists refer to it as the Great Boundary, the final ring, the ultimate veil, the line that cannot be crossed without transformation. This idea has echoes in cultures across time. In the Hebrew Kabbalah, there is the Ein Sof Aur, a radiant limitlessness that surrounds the finite world, separating it from the divine source. In Norse myth, the world tree Yggdrasil is surrounded by Ginnungagap, a void where only the gods dare tread. In Islamic cosmology, the Sidrat al-Muntaha marks the outermost limit of creation, beyond which lies only the realm of God. And in alchemical tradition, the final stage of transmutation, known as rubedo, occurs when the sealed vessel reaches its highest vibration and the material becomes one with the source. What if these were not metaphors? What if the Great Boundary is literal, not a wall of stone or light, but a dimensional filter, where space itself ends and a new form of existence begins? A place where laws change, time bends, and only those who have awakened may pass. In whispers from ancient societies and breakaway civilizations, there are legends of those who reached the boundary. Some returned changed. Others did not return at all. The firmament may be the ceiling, the ice wall the outer rim, but the final seal is something more, a cosmic firewall, set in place not to punish, but to protect. And it may not stay sealed forever. Recent anomalies, magnetic surges, strange auroras, gravitational fluctuations suggest that the boundary is weakening, or perhaps preparing, for disclosure, for activation, for the next step in the grand design. The InSlowSpective ends here, at the edge. Beyond it we cannot go. Not yet. But now you know. The world is not a spinning accident. It is an enclosure, a system, a stage. And the final curtain waits, just beyond the seal. To the untrained eye, the night sky is a chaos of stars, points of light scattered across an infinite canvas. But to ancient astronomers, mystics, and now modern flat Earth researchers, The sky is something far more precise. It is a coded interface, a matrix of light, designed to relay information. The stars do not wander. They follow patterns, perfect circles, eternal loops, mirrored geometries. Polaris never moves. Constellations rotate like clockwork. Eclipses can be predicted to the second, not because of chance, but because of code. Many now believe the firmament isn't just a barrier, it's a display. A dome of projected or embedded light running on a schedule so sophisticated it borders on artificial intelligence. In this view, the firmament is a programmed sky, an ancient celestial OS overlaying the flat Earth below. Evidence? Consider the following. The Sothic cycle of the Egyptians, where the appearance of Sirius aligned perfectly with seasonal floods for over 1,400 years. The Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old analog computer that modeled planetary positions with uncanny accuracy. The zodiacal wheel, found in cultures as diverse as Babylon, India, and Mesoamerica, each describing the heavens as rotating symbols, not drifting bodies. Some researchers suggest the stars are encoded harmonics, musical frequencies translated into light, resonating in the crystalline dome. Others posit they are energetic markers, nodes in a celestial grid that controls time, emotion, and memory. And the sun and moon? In this model, they are not burning balls and orbiting rocks. They are localized projectors, synchronized to the same master algorithm, rising and setting not because of planetary movement, but because of the firmament's rotation code. There are even reports, rare and whispered, of glitches, stars flickering or shifting abruptly, a second sun appearing briefly, or the moon dimming in unnatural patterns. These are not optical illusions. They are potential signs of a sky system under maintenance. So who controls it? Some say it's self-regulating, like a divine watch. Others believe it's still being managed, from beyond the ice wall, or from deep within the dome itself. If true, then we live not just beneath a sky, but beneath an interface, and someone, or something, is still logged in. If the firmament is a designed mechanism, a matrix of light and resonance, then what of its language? What if the stars themselves are not merely lights, but symbols? And what if the heavens have always been trying to communicate? Flat Earth researchers now propose that the constellations, auroras, and geometric patterns seen in the night sky are not random formations, but glyphs, coded messages from the builders of the dome. These are not alphabets in the traditional sense. They are resonant forms, shapes that carry meaning through geometry, frequency, and proportion. Just as cymatics reveals language in vibration, and sacred geometry speaks through symmetry, the glyphs in the sky vault may represent an ancient, non-human syntax, designed for universal transmission. Evidence for this theory stretches back thousands of years. The zodiac was never just about horoscopes. Each house is a composite of symbols, numerological alignments, and mythic associations. Taken together, they form a calendar of consciousness, a rotating wheel of encoded intention. The Nazca lines, visible only from above, resemble sky glyphs mapped directly onto Earth. Could they be reflected symbols from the dome above? Ancient megalithic sites align with star clusters, but not based on location, based on form. Stonehenge mirrors the Orion pattern. Angkor Wat traces Draco. The Giza Plateau is an exact ground layout of the belt. These are not coincidences. They are keys. In recent years, researchers using AI-based sky mapping tools have begun to trace repeating forms in the constellations, glyphs that resemble ancient scripts found in Sumer, Tibet, and pre-Incan civilizations. Many show spirals, tridents, and triple arcs, recurring across cultures with no contact. Why? Because they were all reading the same dome. The builder's language is not spoken aloud. It is felt. It affects emotion, intuition, and thought. It bypasses culture and speaks directly to the soul. And now, strange things are happening. Some star patterns are shifting. Geometric auroras flash momentarily with undeciphered symbols. The northern lights have been recorded drawing arcs, sigils, and shapes that resemble circuitry. Pilots and remote astronomers report brief flashes of glyphs appearing between constellations, like fragments of a message being restored. What if the dome is rebooting its language layer? What if the builders left behind not just a structure, but a conversation? And perhaps, after ages of silence, the sky vault is ready to speak again. For those who accept that Earth may be flat and enclosed, one mystery rises above the rest. What lies beyond the known map? Beyond the Antarctic wall, beyond the visible dome, beyond even the builder's glyphs? Could there be mirrored lands, inverse realities, reflected civilizations? According to some flat Earth researchers, the world we inhabit may be one of many, arranged in a pattern not linear, but radial, like segments of a great wheel or petals of a cosmic flower. At the center lies the world we know. Beyond the ice wall lie others. But farther still lies a strange and haunting concept, the axis of reversal. This axis, described in esoteric lore and occult star maps, is a fixed line stretching from the magnetic north at our center to a mirrored pole at the farthest edge of the plane. At its midpoint, somewhere far beyond Antarctica, reality begins to invert. Legends from all corners of the world hint at this idea. In Zoroastrian myth, the world is divided between light and shadow, mirrored eternally across a sacred axis. In the Tibetan Shambhala tradition, the earth has a hidden twin, only accessible through meditation, sacrifice, or resonance. In Gnostic writings, our world was a shadow copy, a mirror of the true realm, reflecting a cosmic order we've forgotten. Some suggest that at the far ends of the flat plane lie inverted civilizations, reflected opposites of our own. Where their skies rotate counter to ours, their sun moves backward, their time runs differently. Their knowledge, preserved from the Great Reset, is the inverse of our confusion. Travelers, mystics, and whistleblowers speak of dreams and visions where they crossed the boundary and found themselves in a world both familiar and alien. Trees spiral in opposite patterns. Language flows from right to left. Even gravity, they claim, pulls sideways, toward the center, not down. Could this be more than metaphor? Could the Earth's flat plane extend not as a circle, but as a double mandala? Two mirrors spinning in unison, each with its own dome, its own history, its own firmament. And at the midpoint, a zone of distortion, a veil, a reversal gate. If true, it would explain why no one is permitted beyond certain coordinates, why flight data disappears, why expeditions vanish, because somewhere near the edge is a place we're not meant to comprehend. The axis of reversal isn't just geographical, it is dimensional, and to cross it is to see yourself as you were never meant to be. From the earliest myths to modern quantum theory, one idea has endured: what we see is not all that is. Flat Earth researchers now propose a radical perspective, that the world we inhabit is not merely enclosed, but projected. Not an illusion, but a structured holograph. A programmed reality beneath a domed canopy, guided by what some call the curtain and the code. The curtain is the veil, the boundary between what we perceive and what actually is. It is the limit of light, sight, thought, and memory. Ancient scriptures call it the veil of illusion, the Maya, the sheath, the firmament. Not just physical, but perceptual. It's what keeps the stars looking infinite, the globe feeling real, the dome appearing absent. The code is what lies beneath. Lines of unseen instruction woven into the frequencies, shapes, and cycles of our world. Sacred geometry, numeric harmonics, time loops, and resonant archetypes. All suggest a constructed environment operating by deliberate design. A simulation? Perhaps. But not digital, not artificial. Analog divine. Flat Earth theory reframes our realm as a divinely programmed stage, and the dome as its curtain of perception. Everything, the weather, the light, the sky, even the mind, responds to inputs. Thought, intention, frequency. Why do ancient sites align perfectly to stars, solstices, and acoustics? Why do prayers, mantras, and rituals affect water, plants, and even memory? Because reality responds, like code being accessed from within the stage. Some now speculate the firmament is a feedback device, projecting based on the collective state of humanity. The world we see, wars, weather, confusion, is a collective dream, coded by consensus and fear. And the only way to escape is not through rockets or revolt, but through awakening. To pull back the curtain is to realize that stars may be stored light patterns, that emotion influences matter, that what we see is filtered through a code that changes with belief. And now, perhaps, the code is weakening. Anomalies grow. Time feels less linear. People speak of Mandela effects, reality glitches, déjà vu that lasts too long. The curtain flickers. Some say the builders left behind a back door, a master key, a phrase, a frequency, a harmonic tone buried deep in the human voice. If found, it could unlock the code, or part the curtain. And when it does, we may realize the world was never what it seemed. That the flat earth was not just our prison, it was our classroom, and the firmament not our ceiling, but our final mirror. For thousands of years, the earth has been sealed, its surface structured, its sky encoded, its edges guarded. But from ancient texts to modern visions, a final prophecy threads through time. The builders will return. They are known by many names: the architects, the watchers, the elders, the designers. And across every culture, they are remembered not as gods, but as engineers of the firmament, the ones who tuned the dome, the ones who etched the stars, the ones who set the clock and walked away, or so we believed. In flat earth cosmology, the firmament is not just a construct, it is a beacon, a signal generator, a containment field, and when its frequency begins to change, as many now believe it has, it may act as a summons, a reactivation, a return protocol. Throughout esoteric history, there are glimpses. The Emerald Tablet speaks of those who will descend again when the time is ripe, through the gates of the sky. In Hopi tradition, the star beings will return when the world turns inward and the sky sings. The ancient Book of Enoch describes entities who were bound behind the veil, but will rise at the appointed hour to reclaim their craft. The signs mount. Auroras forming into sacred geometries, visible even at the equator. Sudden bursts of unknown gamma-like light in atmospheric layers once considered inert. Symbolic weather, synchronous earthquakes, mirrored lightning across hemispheres, and harmonic booms recorded in skies worldwide. Some believe the builders never truly left, that they are observing from outside the system, or beneath it, waiting for the resonance of Earth's consciousness to reach a frequency high enough to pierce the veil. Others believe they are awakening within, that certain bloodlines, souls, or encoded minds hold fragments of the architect mind, pieces of the builder's return coded in human form. Dreamers, artists, scientists, children, each decoding the sky without realizing why. And what will happen when they return? The firmament may open, not with violence, but with revelation. The code may be decrypted, truths flooding into human awareness like sunrise. The curtain may fall, and the stars above replaced with a new sky. Not everyone will see it, but some already do. The light is shifting. The signals are singing. The dome is listening. And somewhere beyond the seal, the builders are stirring, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as architects returning to a system they never truly abandoned, to witness the awakening of those who finally remembered the world they made.
Epilogue, Part 1. The Death of Space. I was 17 when it happened. The horizon sink event, as the world came to call it, lasted just under 18 minutes, but it collapsed nearly 5 centuries of belief in a spinning globe. I remember standing in my mother's kitchen, watching the sky glitch, not just flicker, but stutter. The moon froze. Planes circled like flies, confused. Shadows reversed. The sun went dim and then restarted. For days afterward, we were told it was solar interference, but deep down, we knew something had broken. By year's end, NASA had quietly erased over 60% of its online archives. ESA and Roscosmos followed. Independent engineers finally broke the story. Space as we knew it had been an elaborate photonic masking system. A globe-shaped holographic projection cast not for aesthetics, but for containment. Satellites, tethered high-altitude drones, and weather lens projectors. International Space Station, a studio above the lower dome shelf. Rocket launches, arc shots, every last one of them. In 2043, NASA was dissolved. Officially, decommissioned for redundancy. Unofficially, outed. The greater loss, however, was spiritual. Entire generations of humanity had believed they were floating on a ball in infinite darkness, insignificant specks with no tether. The realization that we were not in a meaningless void but inside a designed enclosure was not comforting. It was terrifying. What did it mean to be inside? The flat Earth realization did not free us. Not immediately. It first humbled us. We were no longer explorers of the stars. We were participants in a construct, a school, a stage, a simulation. No one could agree on what exactly. But we had crossed a psychological event horizon. Today, we no longer pursue the stars as conquests. We commune with them. Skywatchers are trained not to observe, but to listen, to feel. Constellations are seen not as destinations, but coded symbols, less physics, more philosophy. We've returned to the center, not with triumph, but with trembling. And in that trembling, we've found awe again. Epilogue, Part 2. The Return to Center. There is a trauma that few talk about. The pain not of being lied to, but of being recentered. After the dome was revealed and the globe officially discarded, a question settled in the collective mind like ash after a fire. If the Earth is flat, then why us? Psychologists reported an uptick in identity disorders. Depression surged. People stood at the shores of their cities, staring into the sky, not seeking answers, but demanding reason. We had been told for centuries we were irrelevant in a universe too vast to notice us. Now we were central, witnessed and placed, and it was unbearable for many. Faiths fractured. Atheism collapsed almost overnight, not because people found religion, but because they found structure. That structure was not benevolent or cruel. It was simply there. And that was enough to dismantle modern nihilism. Over time, new forms of spirituality emerged, not religions, but frequencies of resonance. Pilgrimage sites were mapped to the star glyphs on the firmament. People made journeys, not to cities, but to points of harmonic stillness. The most sacred was at the dome's apex above magnetic north. You couldn't reach it, of course, but standing beneath it was said to realign your soul. What changed most wasn't science or theology, it was architecture. Cities were redesigned in spirals, buildings tuned to vibration, public spaces organized around sun path alignments and dome reflections. Our built world began to mirror the world above, because we finally accepted that the sky was the blueprint. I visit the ice wall once a year. I don't go for answers anymore. I go because I want to feel small, but not meaningless. There at the edge, I don't feel fear. I feel center. Epilogue. Part 3. The Architects Within. For decades after the reveal, the world fixated on what the dome was. Few asked who made it. That changed in 2057 when an amateur geneticist named Leila Kashif noticed a repeating geometric pattern in non-coding DNA. Her team decoded it not as a protein sequence, but as a cipher. The pattern matched star glyphs found etched into ancient Sumerian tablets and reflected in the constellations near Polaris. The builders hadn't just constructed the world, they had encoded themselves into us. Soon we began to understand. The firmament wasn't just technology, it was ancestry. The mind that had designed the dome had also designed our perception of it. And that perception was buried in dreams, art, instinct, and sound. A new class of children emerged, those with innate gifts for symbolic language, harmonic awareness, and intuitive geometry. They weren't savants, they were carriers. In them, the architect mind had begun to reactivate. We now have mnemonic temples, learning centers where children are taught to meditate into symbolic recall. They don't study facts, they trace archetypal memory. And when they do, things happen. Lights respond, crystals vibrate, star glyphs shift. These children are not being indoctrinated, they are being remembered. And with each drawing, with each harmonic tone sung into the chambered halls, the earth seems to brighten, as if the dome too is remembering us. Epilogue, Part 4. The Silence in the Ice. Antarctica is no longer a myth. It is a presence. After the collapse of the old geopolitical alliances, an international commission was formed in 2045 to study and secure the Antarctic periphery. What they found was not terrain, but response. Drones flown too far past the standard marker lines would vanish, not destroyed, simply erased. Communications severed. Black box signals returned corrupted, as if the frequencies had been inverted. Human expeditions didn't fare better. Of the 17 recorded efforts to breach the outer ice field between 2045 and 2063, only 3 made it back. Their crews described surreal experiences, light bending at angles, time loops, emotional disassociation. Some heard tones beneath the ice, low harmonic pulses that induced visions of cities, golden vaults, and vertical seas. Most simply wept and refused to speak again. Now, it is no longer policy to explore the ice. It is policy to revere it. We send harmonic offerings, sound beacons launched into the air on crystalline rods. Some return melted, others vibrate for days. Occasionally one disappears in midair. The ice is not a wall, it is a guardian, a membrane between the known and the hidden. And those who approach it now do so in prayer, not pride. The last phrase broadcast from the most recent expedition, before contact ceased, was simple. We were not sent away, we were asked to wait. Epilogue, Part 5. The dome is not the end. It took us 50 years to stop fearing the dome. At first it felt like a cell, then a ceiling, then a system. But now it is a canvas. The sky responds. Its glyphs change with collective consciousness. Entire constellations have altered shape in the last decade, not due to repositioning, but realignment with global harmonic shifts. Our cities now harmonize with those patterns. We build less for function, more for meaning. Every tower, every plaza, every rail line is placed with resonance intention. We no longer teach that truth is out there. We teach that truth rises from within. Each soul is a node, each dream a blueprint, each child a potential gateway. And InSlowSpective, the documentary you're studying, remains our Rosetta Stone. A strange, poetic relic from the time just before memory returned. It predicted the shape, the seal, the veil, even the builders. But it could not have predicted what followed. Not the singing skies, not the mirrored lands, not the luminous beings returning in silence, not the way the world healed when it finally stopped spinning. We do not live on a flat earth. We live on a remembered earth. And under this dome, we are not trapped. We are being prepared.